I once asked Spielberg to name his favorite private moment in Jaws, and he said it was the scene you're about to see, in which Roy Scheider, the police chief, swears at having to dish out some scraps for the shark. We laugh at that, and then we see something that stops our laughter.
Stop playing with yourself, Hooper. Slow ahead, if you please. You heard him. Slow ahead. Slow ahead. I can go slow ahead. Come on down and chum some of this. You're going to need a bigger boat.
Great line. That was the first time we see the Jaws in Jaws, and it's a full hour into the movie, and that's one of the secrets of Spielberg, that he was wise enough not to show us his monster right away, as was done with the subsequent Jaws pictures that he did not direct. And what he liked about that scene was, you hear we bleeped out what Roy Scheider says, but he said he would sit in the back of an audience, and he would wait for that moment because the audience would laugh when they heard the obscenity and then scream. And so he turned a laugh, he said he enjoyed turning a laugh into a scream. And when you know that about him, then you can tell that Spielberg obviously enjoys manipulating his audience. I like the idea of him sitting back there waiting for that moment, guiding and directing the audience. And it's true, when you are in a Spielberg film, there is a sense that someone else is in control of your mind and your eyes. He is not just content to throw random pictures at us. He wants to run us and run us ragged, and we certainly experienced that in Jaws, the film that made him a star director.
There's no doubt in my mind that Steven Spielberg makes just about the best pictures of anybody for seeing with an audience. I remember seeing Jaws in 1975 with about 1,200 people in Chicago. The audience would levitate simultaneously, 1,200 people, and then they would come down laughing with relief in a way because there was fear in the reason that they were scared and so forth. This is interesting, the way that he does what Hitchcock used to say that he liked to do, play the audience like a piano.
And I'll tell you another thing that he's doing. You're right about Suburbia. You have it in Duel, and you also certainly have it in Jaws with this exclusive little island. Here's Roy Scheider away from the big city cop, and now he's on the island, and these incredible things happen. And I think what Spielberg also knows, because he grew up in Suburbia, is that he imagines he's the filmmaker now for the shopping center theater. Think about it. You have all these suburban people. It's not downtown with the people dressing up going to movies anymore. It's all these people driving into the parking lot, going to the suburban theater. They're boring. They're all dressed with the same little emblems on their clothes. They go in, and wow, they see people just like them, and then boom, something exciting happens. You got all these people hoping that something will happen to them that's exciting in their suburbs, and he delivers it.
The impossible journey of filming and producing Jaws. The production of Jaws, 1975, is a tale of cinematic legend, a relentless clash of ambition versus chaos, where disaster loomed large and creativity became the ultimate lifeline. Directed by a then unknown Steven Spielberg, this thriller didn't just redefine Hollywood, it gave birth to the summer blockbuster, forever altering the landscape of filmmaking. But behind the polished brilliance of this masterpiece lies a production saga so fraught with challenges that it's a marvel it reached theaters at all. Imagine this, a 26-year-old director helming a movie about a man-eating shark without a finished script, a functional mechanical shark, or even the faintest clue of the chaos awaiting him on the Atlantic Ocean. The odds of success seem slimmer than surviving an actual shark attack. Spielberg's vision for Jaws was ambitious, but ambition alone couldn't calm the storm brewing over Martha's Vineyard. This production was a battleground where technical failures, uncooperative nature, and clashing egos turned every day into a fight for survival. What makes the story of Jaws so compelling isn't just the behind-the-scenes chaos, it's how those very challenges push the boundaries of creativity. Spielberg, facing one disaster after another, learned to adapt, innovate, and lean into the constraints. The broken shark, the sinking boats, and the temperamental Atlantic weren't just obstacles. They became opportunities to redefine suspense and storytelling. The tale of Jaws is more than just a making-of story. It's a testament to the resilience of filmmaking. It's about how a young director, teetering on the edge of disaster, harnessed his imagination to turn a potential catastrophe into one of the most iconic movies of all time. Buckle up as we plunge into the turbulent waters of Jaws' creation, where every moment of chaos laid the groundwork for cinematic history. Spielberg, the young gun who bit off more than he could chew. Steven Spielberg was 26 years old, relatively unknown, and desperate to prove himself when Universal handed him Jaws. Fresh off directing the Sugarland Express, Spielberg saw Jaws as his golden ticket, but almost immediately, he regretted taking it. Famously, he begged Universal to let him jump ship to direct Lucky Lady instead. The studio refused, and Spielberg reluctantly stayed aboard the sinking ship that was the Fish movie. His decision to shoot on the open Atlantic rather than in a controlled tank was as daring as it was reckless. As Spielberg himself later admitted, he had no idea what he was getting into. "Mother Nature doesn't want to be directed," he quipped. Bruce, the shark that refused to swim. The real star of Jaws, the 25-foot mechanical shark named Bruce, after Spielberg's lawyer, was a diva of the highest order. Bruce didn't just fail, he actively sabotaged the production. Designed to be the menacing heart of the film, Bruce's technical flaws quickly turned him into a multi-ton headache. Salt water, the bane of machinery everywhere, corroded Bruce's delicate pneumatic hoses, leaving him immobile. The foam skin, designed to mimic realistic shark texture, soaked up water like a sponge, causing Bruce to bloat and deform. Electrical circuits shorted out frequently, sparking frustration and possibly a few choice words among the crew. One particularly disastrous day saw Bruce sink to the ocean floor, necessitating an emergency rescue operation by divers. This incident, among others, cemented Bruce's reputation as a theatrical prima donna. Bruce's failures weren't just mechanical, they were logistical nightmares too. The three models of Bruce, a left-sided shark, a right-sided shark, and a full-bodied shark, required 14 crew members to operate. Each model had specific limitations, often rendering them unusable in the harsh Atlantic environment. The crew dubbed the shark the big white turd out of exasperation, and the term, "the shark is not working," became an unofficial mantra of the production. Spielberg's mounting frustration with the malfunctioning shark forced him to pivot creatively. Inspired by the suspenseful techniques of Alfred Hitchcock, he chose to imply the shark's presence rather than show it outright. Enter John Williams' iconic two-note score, a musical embodiment of lurking terror. Williams' score created an auditory representation of the shark, allowing Spielberg to transform technical limitations into cinematic brilliance. This decision revolutionized the way tension was built in thrillers, proving that what you don't see can be far scarier than what you do. By the time Bruce finally made his on-screen debut, audiences were primed with fear, their imaginations having filled in the gaps left by the shark's absence. Spielberg later remarked that Bruce's failures were a blessing in disguise, teaching him the power of suggestion over spectacle. Despite its flaws, Bruce remains one of the most iconic movie props in history. His mechanical woes became a testament to the resilience and ingenuity of Spielberg and his team, proving that even a rubber shark with a bad attitude can create cinematic magic. Cast wars, drama on and off the water. Casting for Jaws was anything but smooth sailing. Roy Scheider, who played Chief Brody, landed the role after a serendipitous encounter with Spielberg at a party, where his interest in the script and quick rapport with the director sealed the deal. Richard Dreyfuss, initially hesitant to play the energetic marine biologist Hooper, famously flipped his decision after seeing his previous film, The Apprenticeship of Duddy Kravitz. Convinced it would bomb, Dreyfuss jumped on Jaws as a career-saving opportunity. Then there was the role of Quint, the salty, hardened shark hunter. Spielberg's initial choices were Hollywood heavyweights Lee Marvin and Sterling Hayden, both of whom turned him down. Marvin for his love of fishing over filming, and Hayden due to legal battles over unpaid taxes. Enter Robert Shaw, an actor with immense talent, a penchant for whiskey, and a sharp tongue. Shaw begrudgingly accepted the role at his wife's insistence, but his presence on set proved both a blessing and a curse. Shaw's antics became the stuff of legend. He often drank heavily, arriving on set inebriated and unleashing his razor-sharp wit on anyone within earshot. Dreyfuss was his favorite target, enduring constant jabs and taunts. Shaw once dared
There's actually a
Dreyfuss
beach
to
down
climb
here
Yorker's
as
mast
well,
and
so
jump into
again,
the water,
highly recommend
offering
checking it
100
out.
for the stunt.
Here you'll see some more
Dreyfuss
boats, and then the
declined,
Coast Guard station
leading Shaw to
briefly in the
ridicule him
background,
as a
if you remember
coward.
that from the previous shot
The
with the red
animosity
roof.
wasn't one-sided,
Quint's shack
as
is
Dreyfuss
actually
grew
not
increasingly
here anymore. It
frustrated
was
with
torn
Shaw's
down
unpredictable
after
behavior.
filming, but
However,
the location you
tension
can basically
translated
stand on
into
top of, and
electric
you can actually
on-screen
eat
chemistry,
right next to it at a restaurant.
depth
There's
to their
another little
characters'
shack
rivalry.
there, which is kind of cool.
The most
And then here's the
memorable
Coast Guard
testament to
station
Shaw's
again from a
brilliance
little
came
further
during
away.
the filming of Quint's USS Indianapolis monologue. Insisting on performing the scene while drunk, Shaw's initial attempt was unusable. Mortified, he called Spielberg the next day, apologized, and promised to deliver a better take. Sober and focused, Shaw delivered one of the most haunting and iconic performances in cinematic history, cementing Quint's place as a character for the ages. Nature's wrath and nautical nightmares. Filming on Martha's Vineyard's open waters was nothing short of a logistical apocalypse. Spielberg's decision to shoot on the Atlantic, while visually authentic, proved to be a nightmare for the cast and crew. The ocean was an unpredictable antagonist, with shifting tides and relentless waves causing delays. Unwanted sailboats often drifted into frame, forcing hours-long pauses while the crew waited for a clear horizon. Even anchored boats were unreliable. The Orca, the film's iconic fishing vessel, sank unexpectedly mid-shoot, sending actors and equipment scrambling for safety. Cameraman Bill Butler's ingenuity helped save some shots. He designed a custom water box that allowed the camera to capture scenes just above the waterline, immersing viewers in the action. Despite such innovations, the production schedule ballooned from 55 days to an agonizing 159 days, with the budget spiraling from $3.5 million to over $9 million, a staggering overrun for the time. Adding to the chaos, the relentless conditions tested the crew's patience. Many suffered from seasickness, sunburn, and sheer exhaustion. Spielberg later likened the experience to filming during a war, where every day felt like survival. The constant setbacks bred a sense of camaraderie, albeit a strained one, as everyone worked against the elements to complete the film. The unpredictability of the Atlantic made even the simplest tasks Herculean, turning every moment of filming into an endurance test. The production's near collapse was exacerbated by technical failures, interpersonal drama, and the overwhelming pressure to deliver. Yet, it was this very chaos that forged Jaws into the masterpiece it became, proving that sometimes the greatest art emerges from the greatest adversity. The Shark City disaster. The set, dubbed Shark City, was a graveyard of broken equipment and dashed expectations. Bruce, the mechanical shark, was a frequent culprit, but the disasters didn't end there. The chaotic environment extended to the crew's morale and even their friendships. During one infamous visit to the set, George Lucas, a close friend of Spielberg, decided to inspect Bruce. What began as playful curiosity ended with Lucas getting his head stuck in the shark's mechanical jaws during a prank. The resulting damage not only delayed production, but also added another layer of frustration to an already frazzled Spielberg. Then came the near-tragic experience of stuntman Carl Rizzo, whose role required him to make a real shark appear larger using a miniature cage. The concept was simple, but risky. Rizzo would descend in the tiny cage while the shark swam around him, creating a forced perspective effect. However, things took a horrifying turn when the shark, far from cooperating, began aggressively attacking the cage. Rizzo barely escaped with his life, surfacing just as his air supply dwindled. The footage of the shark's ferocious attack was so terrifyingly real that Spielberg decided to rewrite the script. Initially, the character Hooper was meant to meet a grisly end at the shark's jaws, but the visceral power of the footage inspired Spielberg to let Hooper live, turning the scene into a thrilling escape sequence that heightened the film's tension. Shark City was also home to a unique kind of improvisation. Crew members, faced with constant breakdowns, became amateur engineers, fixing and patching Bruce daily. The mechanical shark was so unreliable that it rarely functioned for more than a few minutes at a time, leading to endless retakes and creative workarounds. One infamous issue involved Bruce's pneumatic hoses leaking air, resulting in comically weak movements that turned terror into unintentional comedy. Each time Bruce was repaired and sent back into the water, the crew braced themselves for what felt like an inevitable malfunction. Despite the setbacks, Shark City became a testament to perseverance and ingenuity. Spielberg's ability to adapt to the chaos around him, combined with the crew's relentless determination, turned what could have been a production nightmare into cinematic history. The disasters of Shark City are now legendary, proving that sometimes even the most dysfunctional sets can produce pure magic. The Shark City disaster. The set, dubbed Shark City, was a graveyard of broken equipment and dashed expectations. Bruce, the mechanical shark, was a frequent culprit, but the disasters didn't end there. The chaotic environment extended to the crew's morale and even their friendships. During one infamous visit to the set, George Lucas, a close friend of Spielberg, decided to inspect Bruce. What began as playful curiosity ended with Lucas getting his head stuck in the shark's mechanical jaws during a prank. The resulting damage not only delayed production, but also added another layer of frustration to an already frazzled Spielberg. Then came the near-tragic experience of stuntman Carl Rizzo, whose role required him to make a real shark appear larger, using a miniature cage. The concept was simple, but risky. Rizzo would descend in the tiny cage while the shark swam around him, creating a forced perspective effect. However, things took a horrifying turn when the shark, far from cooperating, began aggressively attacking the cage. Rizzo barely escaped with his life, surfacing just as his air supply dwindled. The footage of the shark's ferocious attack was so terrifyingly real that Spielberg decided to rewrite the script. Initially, the character Hooper was meant to meet a grisly end at the shark's jaws, but the visceral power of the footage inspired Spielberg to let Hooper live, turning the scene into a thrilling escape sequence that heightened the film's tension. Shark City was also home to a unique kind of improvisation. Crew members, faced with constant breakdowns, became amateur engineers, fixing and patching Bruce daily. The mechanical shark was so unreliable that it rarely functioned for more than a few minutes at a time, leading to endless retakes and creative workarounds. One infamous issue involved Bruce's pneumatic hoses leaking air, resulting in comically weak movements that turned terror into unintentional comedy. Each time Bruce was repaired and sent back into the water, the crew braced themselves for what felt like an inevitable malfunction. Despite the setbacks, Shark City became a testament to perseverance and ingenuity. Spielberg's ability to adapt to the chaos around him, combined with the crew's relentless determination, turned what could have been a production nightmare into cinematic history. The disasters of Shark City are now legendary, proving that sometimes even the most dysfunctional sets can produce pure magic. Editing wizardry. When chaos ruled on set, salvation came in the form of Verna Fields, the film's editor. Working from her pool house turned editing bay, Fields performed what can only be described as cinematic surgery. Spielberg, recognizing her genius, entrusted her with salvaging the scattered, often incomplete footage. Her resourcefulness was unparalleled. In one instance, Spielberg shot additional scenes in her swimming pool, using milk to simulate the murky waters of the Atlantic. The result? Seamless sequences that blended perfectly into the larger narrative. Fields' knack for piecing together disjointed scenes went beyond technical skill. It was an art form. She scavenged frames from alternate takes, reimagined transitions, and found creative ways to maintain continuity. Her work transformed what could have been a jumbled mess into a cohesive, tension-filled story. Of course, no discussion of Jaws would be complete without mentioning John Williams' score. Initially dismissed by Spielberg as a joke, the now iconic two-note motif became the auditory embodiment of terror. Williams' music turned suspense into a visceral experience, with the relentless rhythm of the shark's theme evoking primal fear. It wasn't just a soundtrack, it was a character in its own right, amplifying the film's tension and immersing audiences in the horror. The birth of the summer blockbuster. When Jaws premiered in June 1975, it didn't just make waves, it created a tidal shift in Hollywood. Audiences flocked to theaters in unprecedented numbers, with lines stretching around the block. The film earned $476 million worldwide, equivalent to over $2 billion today, and spent a jaw-dropping 14 weeks at number 1. Universal's decision to release Jaws on 440 screens, a bold move at the time, revolutionized movie distribution. Paired with a groundbreaking marketing campaign that included television ads and merchandise, it cemented Jaws as the first true summer blockbuster. For Spielberg, the film was a career-defining moment. The young director who feared Jaws would ruin his reputation instead found himself catapulted into Hollywood's upper echelon. The success of Jaws paved the way for a string of iconic films, from Close Encounters of the Third Kind to E.T. and Jurassic Park. Beyond Spielberg's personal success, Jaws set the template for high-concept, event-driven filmmaking that continues to dominate the industry. More than just a movie, Jaws became a cultural phenomenon. From the haunting score to the iconic, "You're gonna need a bigger boat" line, its impact reverberates to this day. It wasn't merely a film, it was an experience, one that terrified, thrilled, and captivated audiences worldwide. And it all began with a broken shark and an unwavering vision. Behind the scenes, strange facts and stories. Here are some lesser-known gems from the making of Jaws. The Orca's accidental demise. One of the 2 Orca boats sank unexpectedly, prompting a mad scramble to save equipment and footage. A 70-year-old sound technician famously yelled, "Forget the actors, save the sound equipment." Spielberg's escapism. On the last day of filming, Spielberg fled the set, fearing the crew would throw him in the ocean out of frustration. This final shot escape became a tradition for him. Audience reactions. At the first test screening, a man ran out of the theater and vomited in the lobby during the infamous raft scene. Spielberg later joked, "That's when I knew we had something." The final word. The making of Jaws was a production nightmare. Technical failures, clashing egos, and an unforgiving ocean nearly sank the project. Yet, these obstacles forced Spielberg and his team to innovate, turning limitations into strengths. The result wasn't just a movie, it was a cultural phenomenon that redefined Hollywood. So next time you hear those two ominous notes while wading into the ocean, remember, the scariest thing about Jaws wasn't the shark, it was the making of the movie itself.